Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and it's another Martial Monday. Today we will be discussing the fighter, their archetypes, right?
I think they're
Fighter,
called archetypes. I call them all subclasses. It's
yeah.
agnostic of class, but yeah.
I'm being fancy. We're going to call it the fighter archetype Battle Master.
Yeah, this is the fighteriest of the fighter subclasses. This is the one where if you want to be like a fighter that has like stuff to do and isn't just making a bunch of attack rolls and hoping to crit, this is the option that you're kind of like given out of the player's handbook that you really want to lean into. I think it's the cleanest design that they had in the PHP, and for that reason, I've seen it a lot. And for whenever I see it, I'm normally like, yeah, that's pretty solid. Everything it does, I'm really excited by. All in all, great little subclass.
Well, good, because we've had two duds so far.
Yeah,
We had Arcane Archer and Banner
Banner was pretty. That's F tier garbage. Yeah, Banner is awful. This is not. This actually can do a lot of what Banner wants to be doing, and it can also do a ton of other stuff too, which makes it so much better in a lot of different ways. So the core of Battle Master Fighter is combat superiority, which basically gives you a pool of you get to learn maneuvers from a big old list of Battle Master maneuvers. Why these aren't based on the fighter class is beyond me. These should be fighter features, but they're not. Alas, they just decided in playtesting that was too complicated to have abilities, I guess. So they
Well, I
moved
mean,
them.
it looks like they were kind of scraping the barrel for subclasses. So, I mean, maybe this was originally in the fighter class, and they
It
said,
was.
no, we need another subclass. So, yeah.
We're running out of content. Let's pull content from the base class and turn that
Yeah.
into a subclass. Big brain, stretching our content as much as we can. In any case, you get a bunch of different tactical maneuvers that you would expect a fighter to do. So you can have like a disarming strike, you get a little parry, you get a bunch of these nifty maneuvers that empower mainly in combat, but there are a few that give you some ways to like improve your, like add your superiority die to your charisma checks. Because of the maneuvers that you learn, you start by learning 3, and you learn more basically every time you get a subclass feature, which is 7th, 10th, and 15th level. So you get 4 more of these. So you end up getting 7, and 7's a lot. You have lots of feeling of flexibility with these. You fuel these with dice, and they start at d8s. They're called superiority dice. You get a number, you get 4 to start with, and you gain extras at 7 and 15th level. So you go to 5 at 7th level and 8 at 5th, or at 6 at 15th level. Which, out the gate, if we're comparing this to Arcane Archer, which gets 2 magic arrows per short rest for the entire game, this gets double that in the beginning and over double that by 7th level. And that's just, you should be really happy with that. They come back on short rest, you're pretty happy with it. They have a little save DC of 8 plus your proficiency or your strength or dex, whichever's higher. I hope they're gonna bake this into like a class DC. I don't know how they're gonna handle it in the next edition, but for now, you get to a DC that you would expect to get. Like spellcasters use their spellcasting modifier, you get to use your attack modifier for that. It makes a lot of sense, right? So you get all these maneuvers, you get a bunch of dice to fuel them, and you also get this little feature called Student of War, which is proficiency in artisan's tools of your choice, which is fine, I guess. Like it's here, it's present, it's flavorful, I guess. I've seen many battle masters not ever once consider what artisan tools they've taken. Most of the time, they just like run around, stab and shoot, and do the fighter thing. But if you want to be like Sun Tzu, poetry and war and that kind of stuff, or you want to do like I don't know, be a potter. You have that option. It comes for free from Student of War, so that's nifty.
Um, about the maneuvers. Now, you said before we started recording, you're not going to go through all of them, and
There's too
that's
many.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
we can do
we
some
don't
big
want people
highlight.
to leave too early. No, but I had a question about them in general. These maneuvers are strictly
Oh, that's so
for
sad.
the Battle Master subclass of fighter.
You cut out entirely.
Wow, well, you just blipped or something.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Question. These maneuvers, they are exclusively for the Battle Master subclass of fighter. Yes?
Mostly, you can
I
be a
have
fighter
seen,
and
yeah.
take the. There's a fighting style that gives you a superiority die in a maneuver or 2 maneuvers, I think. And I can't remember if there's a feat or not.
I
That
think
gives
there
you
is.
the. I think there's a feat.
Like fighter initiate or
Yeah,
something.
that sounds right. That gives you access to another dice and another maneuver. So
But
like,
mainly they're like just for this class though.
yeah,
That's that's crazy. That's like a whole lot of effort to put into a feature of a subclass of one subclass.
imagine if it was like a base core class feature, and then like you can make subclass specific ones. So like
Yeah.
it's supposed to having to make Arcane Archer have this weird little pool of unique shots. You just give them different maneuvers, and every subclass like Eldritch Knight gets magical maneuvers, and Champion gets boring maneuvers, and we give them the stuff that I don't know. This screams like it should have been a base core class feature, but it's not. And you do get all these just to yourself. Every single option here is exclusive, outside of, again, the feat and the fighting style to Battlemaster Fighter.
Yeah, it's man, these little tricks, little ability things get confusing. Like, especially now that we got maneuvers and fighting styles. That's
And maneuvers are exclusive to one subclass.
right.
So it's like an extra little like
It's taken me this long to like remember, oh, we're not talking about a feat, we're talking about a fighting style. But now we're through all the fighting styles.
Yeah, it's a lot. I did a guide on Battlemaster recently. I say recently, whenever I wrote a bunch on the stuff. I basically broke down the maneuvers into a couple of different categories. With that, there's like the extra attack ones. Those are the ones I think are typically the best. So they're like, you get a bonus action free thrown attack, which is really excellent whenever you expend a dice. Those are typically great. You've allied support ones, so you can like Commander Strike to get your rogue an extra option for sneak attack. That's pretty baller. You've got like the laundry list of things that give you bonus to hit and damage based off if you're fighting or your maneuver dice that also like goads something, so it gives a disadvantage attacking other things, or disarms it, which is pretty, like, there aren't a lot of ways to disarm in this game. This is a great way to do it, and disarming a monster can often just be detrimental to it. If you can disarm it and yoink its weapon, it's going to have a pretty bad time. Shrimp attack is pretty great. It's a free way to knock something prone. Being prone is pretty exceptional condition. It gives everyone a melee range advantage on the attack rolls. And that's like all pretty bread and butter, top above board stuff that you can do with it. You can pair this with archery to do some neat trick shots where you're like taking out people's ankles and stuff. You can do weird sweeping attacks that lets you like do damage to more things, like a bad cleave. It's one of the worst ones, but there's a laundry list of excellent little abilities here that can help you sort of be within the Battlemaster class or subclass, create your own feeling of a Battlemaster. You can be a gladiator that uses the net and trident efficiently. You can be again, the superior archer that's making cool trick shots like Arcane Archer wants to be doing that is largely failing to. You can be any of the fighting styles will work with given specific maneuvers in some interesting and unique ways that will lend itself to, if you want to play Captain America, you can probably do it within Battlemaster. If you want to play, Gladiator, if you want to play a Spartan, if you want to do the traditional paladin sword and shield kind of thing, but with no magic, you can get those kinds of features here.
All right. And next question. These are limited to, you're spending superiority dice to use these maneuvers. And
correct.
How many of these dice are you getting?
4 per short rest.
4 per short rest. And do they increase as time goes on?
They do. At 7th and 15th level, you get 1 extra. So you go to 5 at 7th level, which is a great scaling for it, and you get 6 to 15th level, which is, again, a nice, decent chunk. A lot of tables are going to feel like they're doing one big encounter of a long rest, and getting 6 of your attacks being empowered in some interesting ways will even let you use 2 of these in a lot of turns and feel like you still have resources to spare. There'll be a lot of tables that aren't even using that many short rests, that the Battlemaster Fighter will still feel pretty excellent, because even if you're doing 2 rests per long encounter, or 2 fights per long encounter, or long rest, excuse me, you can use 2 in one fight and 2 in another fight, and that's double what the Arcane Archer's doing, and oftentimes they're going to be really high impact. Oftentimes they're going to be knocking somebody prone whenever you need to, and then the Paladin gets advantage on it and crits. Often it's going to be that you disarmed the giant at the start of the fight, got rid of his weapon, and now the entire encounter is shaped around there no longer being a 3d10 greatsword cleaving down on your allies, so the giant has to just figure out and grab rocks and crap and try and get his sword back. All of these lend to really engaging and interesting, fun little abilities that have a fairly large impact on a fight, and you get enough of them that even with how inconsistent short rests are, most tables are going to feel pretty comfortable playing with this amount.
That you brought up the Arcane Archer. That's where I was going with this. Playing a Battlemaster, you can consistently feel like a Battlemaster.
Yeah.
Right. Playing an Arcane Archer, you feel like that a couple of times maybe, and then you're just some guy with a bow.
Yeah, which is like, you're always a guy with a bow. Every subclass can be a guy with a bow if you want to, so I don't have more options.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. I just wanted to say, like, it's good to feel like you are your subclass.
Yeah.
Persistently.
as we continue on with the subclass, so we've got like know your enemy is a 7th level feature that I think is actually kind of bogus. So you spend a minute observing or interacting with another creature outside of combat, and you learn something about it. So compared to you, so it isn't a static number that you learn. You don't like examine something and know its AC. You know, compared to your AC, is it bigger or smaller? Which is normally enough to be like, okay, this thing's more than an 18 AC, we should be scared of it, or, this thing's got less than 18 AC, I learned almost nothing because it could just be a 17, that's still pretty high, or whatever. But you can learn its strength, dex, con, AC, hit points, class level, if any, and fighter class levels, if any. Those last two almost are a non-factor because most monsters don't have class levels, typically. Which leaves this being like a little flavorful 1-minute feature. The real bulk of what you get at 7th level is you learn another maneuver and you get an extra dice. Know your enemy being a little flavorful top off on top of that is fine, I guess. I do wish this was designed slightly better, though.
You did say right? You learn all of that stuff?
You learn one of those things for a minute observing it.
Now, do you choose what you learn?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's something.
Oh, sorry, and it's 2 of the following of your choice. You get to learn 2 at a time. But like,
all right, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it. What were those again?
Strength, dex, con. One of those, 2 of any of those ability scores. Okay. Their AC, their current HP, their levels, and their fighter levels. That's the pool of information you get.
Okay. Well, there's stuff you could do with that, I guess.
Like?
Well, I mean, like if you were saying, monsters don't have levels, but enemy NPCs do.
Sure. So if we're using it to like discern their levels, you can try and guess if they have specific features. And then you can try and plan around those specific features. So you like, okay, I compare myself to that enemy spellcaster. If they're higher level than me, because you don't know exactly what level they are.
Right.
You'll know if they're higher or not. Equal, higher, or lower than you in this category. So if you're level 5 and they're higher level than you, that could be anywhere from 6th to 20th level, right? If they're lower level than you, that's 1 to 4. So you still aren't like getting a huge amount of information.
No, but I don't know. Maybe occasionally that could be relevant. I don't know. Whatever. Go on.
I've never once seen it be relevant, and I've seen players try aggressively to use it, and they're like, we know its AC is higher than mine. And I go, yup. Okay. It's wearing a gigantic shield and is made of metal. I don't know what you expected, but you now know, after spending a minute examining it, that it has more than 18 AC. Huzzah. You've done it. I'm proud of you. Yay. That leads to like maybe a couple decisions where you try and knock it prone sooner or something. There's niche advantages to be had here. I find it to be an underwhelming feature, and fighters desperately want more to do out of combat, and this isn't really something to do out of combat, which is why it's a bummer. But again, you also get an extra die at this level, which is a big improvement, and you also get a learn a new maneuver at this level, which is, again, just gravy. What's not to love? Yeah. So then 10th level brings over improved combat superiority, which is like not a feature because it just scales your dice. So it goes from D8s to D10s here, which is a meaningful improvement. They scale up to D12s at 18th level, but like that's forever away. So these will probably be D10s for basically the rest of the game in most cases. And like D10s are very large. D10s are half of D20 sometimes. They'll sway outcomes even more so than D8s will. It's a fine quality of life update. And again, you're learning new maneuver here, so you're still kind of getting new features to use with this ever-expanding pool of dice. I still really wish that there was some out-of-combat stuff to do here, but there isn't, and that's just a base core fighter problem design issue. So, like, all right. And then finally, you end on Relentless, which is the same feature that Arcane Archers get, but instead of you gaining the Arcane Shot, you get a Spirit or Die back if you're out of them. And I actually really hate this feature even more than I hate Know Your Enemy, because this encourages you... This leads to a really uncomfortable, awkward play pattern. So if you're in a situation where you ever have extra maneuvers, if you're ever conserving them, you aren't benefiting from Relentless at all. This has no meaningful text. This isn't improving your character in any way, shape, or form for you trying to stagger and be responsible and conserve your resources. Thus, if you want this feature to do something, you're encouraged to use all of your maneuvers out the gate as fast as you can. So next encounter, you're getting slightly more net resources than you had before. There will be a lot of long rests where you have 2 fights, you'll think there might be a 3rd fight coming, or maybe you don't think like, I mean, I don't know if we're going to have time for a short rest. I'm going to conserve my resources here. This will then have no text. There'll also be times where you'll go, okay, I'm pretty sure there's going to be more fights here. I'll burn through all of them, and then you do have time for a short rest, and this still has no text. And it leaves it ultimately feeling like you've got a good pool of resources on 6 dice that you can stretch out. This really needed to just say, when you roll initiative, you regain a superiority die. This doesn't need to have it, the cause of it being empty. Because whenever it's empty, you have this awkward situation where 1 superiority die in a fight doesn't feel like a ton, and you don't want to use all 6 out the gate on a lot of fights because 6 is a lot. So you're left in this kind of awkward nebulous space where you got a feature that conceivably is good, Like it should expand the total pool of resources you have in a vacuum, but in practice, the patterns it encourages and how you can try and actually get uses out of it ultimately always feel pretty bad to me. So that's a bummer.
I mean, what if you just make a habit of, all right, I'm just going to burn through these resources?
Then you're in a situation where you are gating yourself to one superior die on larger fights down the road. So let's say you do want to burn through your resources really quickly and you want to have maximize the effectiveness of Relentless. You have to, in the first encounter, because you have the first encounter, if it's only one per long rest, this feature does nothing. If there's only one encounter per short rest, this feature does nothing, right? Because you will always start with all your dice. So you have to have more than one encounter per rest. Then you have to use all of your dice in that encounter, all of them. You have to commit to saying, I'm using all 6 of them. And then the next encounter, regardless of its scope or scale compared to the first one, you will only have 1 dice to use instead of possibly 3, possibly 4. You might not have needed all of those maneuvers in that encounter. You've been practicing this whole game, balancing out your use cases of them. You've been practicing this whole game, deciding when you do want to use your cool, impactful trips, when you do want to use your cool, impactful disarms, right? Taking that away and saying, if you don't know that this does nothing, it doesn't work with how most people play, and it isn't really great feeling to play with. This feels like a pity point that you get whenever you feel like you overextended yourself. And that's not a 15th level feature that it should be, in my opinion.
No.
I know I sound really down on the upper tier stuff. That should be a testament how good the 3rd level feature is and how good the base scaling of this option is, because this will carry you through most of the mid tiers and you'll still feel pretty excellent with it. And upper tier fighters make 1 billion attacks around, have Indomitable and a bunch of other stuff that makes them feel very robust. So you're going to have plenty of moments where you're like making 3-4 attacks a turn, you're action surging for 8 attacks, and you're like, trip thing, and then you get 4 attacks at advantage, you're like, I'm a monster. You'll still feel pretty cool because all of the conditional based maneuvers scale really, really well with making more attacks, and fighters get 1 billion attacks at the level.
All right. Well, speaking of disappointing upper level features, what do we get at level 18?
Nothing. You get nothing at level 18. Your D10s become D12s. That's a passive scaling that doesn't replace a core feature, and it should be considered. If you consider, like, Paladin's Capstone gives them the ability to ascend into an Archangel-like status with a giant area of effect and extra radiant damage, and it varies on subclass and does a whole bunch of cool, awesome stuff. Thieves get an extra turn at the start of every encounter, which is a huge deal, right? They get these big, splashy, impactful things. We've seen martial features be big and splashy and impactful. 18th level being your dice size is now D12 as opposed to D10s. That's a passive improvement that you'd like to see, but that is not 9th level spell worthy. That's not competing with Meteor Swarm or Wish, and it's never going to, right? But it should be a lot closer than nothing at all. So that's a bummer. Well, and 18th level feature could have been like, you get all your maneuvers back every fight, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, I guess that's something. Now you can just go crazy.
Cool. Yeah.
And again,
that would be really cool. That's a good upper level feature. That would be. But right. Alas, that is not what that's not the world we live in.
No, the world we live in has no text whatsoever there. You have to dig into the 10th level feature to remember that you get an 18th level feature nested in that, which is bogus.
Well, I don't know. Maybe this is since it's so front loaded, maybe this is a good class to get all the cool stuff in the beginning and then multi-class out of.
It can be, definitely. Fighters are in a little bit of an awkward position because you do really want your 3rd attack, and this is one of the rare classes that get like just a native 3rd attack, so you are somewhat compelled to stay in it for a little while. That being said, multi-classing Ranger getting like Gloomstalker extra attacks is pretty good. Multi-classing Paladin giving you the resources is pretty good. There's a lot of things that will supplement your character in ways that'll be resource-based, but often better than if you've got the resources to spend a 3rd attack a turn. So, like, juggling when you want to do that is a bit awkward. Now, granted, the 3rd attack comes at 20th level. For some reason, I thought they got 4 attacks, and I guess I'm just wrong according to the, what's listed here. So, no, I'm sorry. They get their 3rd attack at 11th level. It says ×2 and ×3. That's not total attacks. That's total extra attacks.
Okay.
Not important. You want to get to 11th level for your 3rd attack. I was right. So getting there is, somewhat reasonable. At the same time, getting 5 levels on Fighter and then dipping into Rogue for a bunch of good utility stuff, as well as one of your attacks getting bonus 2d6 damage around, that's pretty solid, right? Like 2d6 extra damage with all your maneuvers that you're getting on short rests, with a rogue subclass, with expertise, with cunning action, you got better things with your bonus action now. That's a pretty sweet, easy build. Taking things like warlocks, get some sweet invocations, get a lot of utility stuff, use your spells for like hex and whatnot to get extra damage on your hits. That's pretty sweet. You can easily dip into Battlemaster Fighter, get your little pool of dice that reset fresh and short rests, and just even do things where you like maybe dip into Barbarian, so you can start raging, getting on armored defense, reckless attacks, so you have advantage on all these things, be a Battlemaster Barbarian. That seems pretty sweet. Get Totem Armor or Totem Bear to have resistance to all the damage types you want in the world. That's pretty sweet. Like, there are a ton of avenues to explore for multiclassing, especially if you're knowing the game isn't going to go the full 20 levels. Multiclassing is really, really powerful. So, like, that's a real option that 100% you should consider. Multiclassing through this is excellent.
All right. Well, I guess we're at the end of this subclass. Any final thoughts?
I don't know if I graded the last one, but we're going to grade this one. I want to say this is a solid B. I think despite all of the upper level failings that it sort of has, like the non-features, the core of this is good enough and offers you a big swath of utility and a lot of customization that for most people that play the game that aren't even going to ever see Relentless, that aren't even ever going to see the 10th level feature, this is going to feel pretty exceptional to play with. The short rest recharge mechanic isn't the best thing in the world, but it will happen from time to time at most tables, and even whenever it doesn't, getting 4 dice in a single fight is a lot of dice for a single fight. That can have huge impacts, from disarming to goading to getting a free extra attack with your dagger whenever you need to at a range. All of that's going to be very useful. For that reason, it's a really solid option. I would recommend it to most people that want to have the martial fighter experience where they want to attack and they want to attack well.
All right. Are you grading this like on the full 20 levels, or just on taking for granted you're not going to get that high anyway, or what?
I'm grading, I think, even with the upper tier failings, even if you play this for the full 20 levels, even with the upper tier options being like, meh, you're still going to have a great time playing the subclass, and it's still powerful enough. It scales well with crits, scales well with extra attacks, it scales well with what the core fighter is doing. It doesn't, well, it would be a territory if it had cool, splashy upper tier features, but fighters can make builds with feats that hit like a bus in the upper tiers that will do devastating damage. Battlemaster can easily be part of one of those options. It's not going to be the most powerful thing in the world, and for that reason, I think a B is entirely fair.
All right, I'll just blindly agree with your B here, because I've never played fighters, and I've never played any in fifth edition. So yeah, I'm a little bit out of my territory here.
That's fair.
But yeah, that sounds about right. Upper tier stuff notwithstanding, I think that might actually be a boon to encourage you to multiclass.
Honestly, yeah, this is a superb subclass to multiclass with, for sure.
All right, well, that was Battlemaster. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let us know what you think down in the comments, and yeah, I guess we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.